Hello, everyone. Welcome to PMQ and also deTour. So, thank you for coming to today's Design Dialogue. And today's topic is talking to domestic data stream. Where is the data from? And we are delighted to have domestic data streamers, Pau and Maria here, all the way back from Barcelona, Spain, to be exhibiting with us this year in deTour 2022. And as well as joining us here, become one of the speakers here as the Design Dialogue. So yeah, let me pass the stage to the domestic data streamers to present their projects first, and then we have Q&A sections afterwards with the curators. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Well, hello, everyone. First of all, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and for being like so nice, really, so kind with all the work we do, and so helpful. I think it's very complex to do projects like this with the time that we have, without a team like the one that we have created together. So, first of all, thank you. And today, we will introduce some projects related to our work and the way we think. And finally, we will have space also of debate, no? and questions and answers, so we can go further into the discussion. First of all, to give you a bit of introduction, we are a small studio from Barcelona. Even if we work internationally, our studio is specifically based in different disciplines. So inside the studio, you can find like coders, designers, data scientists, journalists, artists, and all of them working together in a somehow harmonious way, even if sometimes there are fights as any other studio. But what is interesting from this idea is that we truly believe that design has something that other disciplines have not, is that it's in its core and a way to speak. It's a language itself. So designers by nature are very good at working with other disciplines, right? And this is a great advantage when working in transdisciplinary technological projects, right? Like the ones we have done. And our main fights in the projects we do are these two fights. The first one is how we can make people care about information in a moment that we are totally surrounded by huge amounts of data, by huge amounts of like TikToks, Instagram, news every day, how we can make people really feel something when they receive specific information. And the second fight we are on is on the space of creating debate, creating conversations. We live in a very polarized world where there is like right and left, north and south, the good and the bad, right? There is all these ideas of polarization, of enemies, and we truly believe that there is a need of a common space, a space of discussion, a space where people could be heard and also can speak. And today we will present some of the projects working in that direction. But mainly our way of working, it's what we call collective info experiences. So probably you have heard about infographics or information design, and we always tend to push a bit more in terms of not understanding information as something that you see, but something that you can smell, something that you can hear, and something that you can be part of, right? So for that, what we will do is to talk about the topic that concerns us today. And to start with this topic, I wanted to like put yourself in the right mindset. And the mindset for me when working about this project was the realization that we live in a mystery, right? And some people really go through this mystery like they don't care. Some other just look at it but takes this mystery and put it in the bag and forgets about it. And there are some few people that really look at the mystery, right, and contemplates with its beauty. And this mystery is called time. And time, as you know, is a very odd thing. It's a thing that sometimes 1 hour can feel like 10 hours, 20 hours. And sometimes 1 hour can feel like seconds, right? And the perception we have on time is so subjective and so different because it's something that is so complex to control. And we have worked so much in trying to encapsulate time, right? So this is one of the first constructions that are still existing. This is a shadow clock, right? And we have seen that through all civilization, ways that we could actually control time and understand time, from solar clocks to the Chinese stick incense clock. I like it very much because as you can see in the image, in this clock, as the incense was burning, these weights were falling, so you could hear the hour, and also you could smell the time, right? So there was a specific smell for different hours of the day. And again, like, we have created all these very crazy things, like the atomic clock, something so specific that works with vibration, or Caesium clocks, the satellite clocks that actually today build the GPS signal, or the most advanced clock that actually is using like light, right, and the vibration of light. And all these clocks, all this craziness is specifically developed to actually encapsulate time, to transform it into a way of power, because somehow there is a clock that says at what time you should go to work, at what time you should wake up, right? Time is really about rules and sometimes also about power, and we can see that in like the most important clocks. This is the clock of La Mecca, and is the biggest tower clock in the world. And just for reference, here you can see how big this is. Like, this is a massive clock. Imagine when they built this clock, they actually sent a message to say, hey, maybe we should change the meridian, the Greenwich meridian, into the Mecca meridian, because this clock is even bigger than the one in Greenwich, right? And still, this is the Nungan. This is a clock that was used in South Africa to actually, every noon, they will shoot the cannons. And it was a way for the ships to know what time was, but also it was a demonstration of power, right? So clocks itself, they have much more deep and concerning ideas behind them. And time is not only the time that it is, but it's the time that represents something behind, right? So we really wanted to explore this idea. Here you can find Samuel Angulo, a very important philosopher from Barcelona. And he said, we are time, the time that is left, time that we share, and time that slips through our fingers. And in a very poetic way, what he was saying is that really time cannot be encapsulated, because time is life, and life goes through every step we do every day, right? It's nothing that you can put in a calendar or a clock. It's something that you go through, right? And going back to some of the projects that we have been working, we started thinking, well, how you could kind of change this relation with time. And all the answers that we found were things like this. Well, you can travel in time while reading, or you can escape time by listening music, or you can feel the time pass by while writing, right? And of course, breathing, now a way to release that time. And this poetic, a still very human way to perceive time is what we are really interested in how we can create artifacts, clocks, installations, exhibitions, spaces where we can understand time not from the idea of encapsulating it, but from the idea of looking at it and our relationship, right, from a more human perspective. So today we will show 3 projects related to time. It was very odd because when we were talking with Maria, we realized that for more than 9 years, we have been talking about time. And specifically here in Hong Kong, I think it's a very important topic as everyone is rushing from one place to the other, so time is very scarce. And you had like this feeling that is running from you the time, no? Right? So we said, okay, let's go through like these different projects. And the first project we wanted to show is a project that we did at the Design Museum in Barcelona in 2014, so a long time ago. And in this case, we spent one day, one full day in the Design Museum asking people this question: for how long people want to live, right? And it's a question that, of course, you don't do to yourself normally, right? But it's a question that really put your life in perspective somehow. And we started making all these questions, and what we created was an installation that could actually visualize this. We were doing first one question that was, how old are you? And then another that was until what age you would like to live for, right? And this is the database. This is like the answers of everyone in an Excel spreadsheet. This is how normally data is shown, reproduced, and sent to people. Still, we have a lot of tools to transform this data into something different. So for example, all this data can be transformed into this graphic. This is a classic infographic, and as you can see here, I will show you. This is the axis of real age, and this is the axis where people want to die. And as you can see, kids, small kids, they want to live over 120, 140, right? And as they grow up, they start to realize that life is a bit tough, so they become more realistic. There is this small dot over here because the people on the 20s, some of them want to die with 27, like Jimi Hendrix, Bob Marley, and so on. And then you can see as you grow older, of course, you want to live a bit more, and you go up, right, again. But something that we thought is how we can talk about such an important and emotional topic in this way. We have to do it in a way that really makes people think and understand that this information is about life and it's about time. So this, what you will see now, is an installation that have the same data that you have seen here and the same data that you have seen here, but in a different way. Sam?
In life, there are things which we are able to decide and others which we can't. Death is one of those things that plays between these two possibilities, where one can decide when to die, but not for how long they will live for. 800 balloons mark the point between one's real age and the age at which they would like to die, in contrast with their gender. The white balloons are the coordinates of those who don't know at what age they want to die, whereas the black balloons are the coordinates of those who do know at what age they want to die. A volatile and ephemeral peace that questions our desire to live, and an irrefutable end of a journey, or in other words, a lifeline.
Well, so as you have seen here, what we were trying to do is transform a bit the context in which information can be displayed, right? So we realized that by creating a space of information, a physical space, we were changing this idea of reading the information like in the newspaper or in the phone, that is a very individual act, right? It's something that you do with yourself. And place it in a space, you were creating a collective reading. So you were making participatory because you were not only seeing your information, but also the rest of people's information. And you will be able to see other people's reaction to that information. And the second important fact was that we were changing this idea of having a monologue as a designers, artists, institutions, brand, from one person to the audience, and we were creating a conversation, a dialogue, right? And this was all possible because we created a context in which, of course, you could answer this question. If a random person stops you in the middle of the street and asks you for how long you want to live, probably you will be scared. But in the context, of course, of a museum, that was a bit different, right? And it created like this space of conversation and discussion, right? The second installation that we wanted to share, also connected to time, it's called Sandfalls. And in this case, we were asked by the Contemporary Art Center of Barcelona to do something that was a bit complex. They told us, how can we quantify the impact of an artwork towards an audience, right? And this is, of course, a very, crazy question, because art is subjective. So how can you quantify something that is subjective? And then we said, well, maybe we cannot quantify the impact, but we can quantify the attention that different artworks had, right? So what we placed was different sensors around the exhibition space, and we started tracking the amount of time that people spent in front of one artwork or the other. And it was really nice because with all this data, you could see that there were spaces that really people wanted to interact and spend time and discuss and so on. But we said, well, what will happen if we make visible all this information? It will change the behavior of people. And that was the idea, was using one of the oldest metaphors for time, that is the sun clock. We took all the data, and real time, we wanted to transform it into a sun clock. Right? So you will be like seeing every second that someone spent in front of an artwork transformed into a grain of sand. And that was the first prototype. As you can see, it's very humble. and from there, we started to do, of course, better prototypes. We work with glassmakers to make this very tailor-made. And of course, there are no sun clocks that are made for this kind of purposes. Enrique was our master of glass because, of course, we need like specialists, and I think this is one of the beautiful part of our work, that you get to work with people from other disciplines and artisans and masters of it. And of course, it have like this very magical process in the way of making a sun clock. So we started creating like this whole thing that ended up looking like this. They were like 5 different sun clocks that were connected to these sensors and will release like this sun. And it was interesting to see how the sun clocks were placed at the very end of the exhibition. So when the people arrived here, they will show the attention that every artwork was kind of taken up. And it was nice because most of the people, when they saw that there was one artwork that was more seen, they came back to see it again, right? So it changed their perception of the space, even if it was invisible. And there was like this crazy moment, the day of the opening, I was doing a tour with my parents. They were very proud at that point, I hope. And we were doing this whole tour, and I saw one person in front of one artwork, very serious, like there. And then after an hour or so, I did another tour with friends of mine. And when we arrived to this artwork, the guy was still there watching the artwork. And I asked him, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" And he told me, yes, I'm good. I just think that this artwork is very good and it deserves my time, right? So he was kind of connecting and empathizing with an artwork that is an inanimate object in a way that sometimes we even don't do with other people, right? So just by making visible some information, you can change the behavior and the relationship that we can have even with an object, right? And I think like this quote for me is very important, and for our work has always been about doing, right? And it's an old Confucius quote. I read it at Paradigms of Interactivity, the book, and it says, "I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand." And this is very much about the idea of how we can include participation in the projects we do, how we can make like really, really tangible in a way that people are part of and they understand the information, they just not see it. And finally, and then we'll go straight to the installation that we have made here, I will show the time machine that it feels perfect for the topic we're talking about. And it was a project that was first thought for the United Nations in 2016. And they told us that there was like this huge problem with the General Assembly. The General Assembly is the meeting where like high-level political decision makers come, meet together, and make promises. And they told us, well, every year we come here and we give a report to all these high-level politicians saying, we have a problem. We have a problem because we don't have data on a lot of children's childhood and education and health. And this is a big problem because you are making policies, but you are not actually tracking the impact that these policies have. So whenever you are creating a new policy, how you will see that this is having an impact in the long term if you are not tracking and you don't have information about the childhood. And we said, well, in this case, we had to visualize the lack of information, right? And we said, this is so surreal that we have to do something at the same level of surrealism. Our public was, at this time, Obama, as President of the United States at that point. Ban Ki-moon was Secretary General of the United Nations. We said, well, okay, let's try to find a way to bring all these people to understand how important it is to have information on childhood in every country. And we thought our briefing has to be to make a time machine so we can bring all these politicians back to their own childhood and realize about their own data and the importance of that. And this is the video that we first made to explain the concept.
For a long time, humans have been grappling with the idea of time travel. The goal of traveling to the past or the future has always challenged mankind to push the boundaries of technology and science. For the first time now, we have managed to create the technology that enables it. Today we present the world's first working time machine, the only machine that allows you to travel to the present, the most important time we face. A machine activated through your heartbeat that will take you through a journey, asking questions about your childhood, your fears, memories, and dreams. A machine that enables you to be a child again. The time machine will transform all your childhood information into the song of your commitment, a song specifically made for you. All the songs created will form part of the commitment playlist, an album where there will be as many variations of it as there are childhoods. The machine will print a personalized commitment contract between yourself and yourself as a child. This contract will be part of the first commitment contract exhibition, an exhibition that will publicly show people's promises to better the future for children worldwide.
Okay, so after that video, they said, okay, come over and build the time machine. And the time machine was kind of a sound booth. So we wanted to have these politicians really isolated because, as you can imagine, most of them, they have like the attention span of a goldfish. Like they are really distracted by advisors, security, journalists, and so on. So we created a whole experience that in this case was very individual. And we thought it like very thoughtful. So they will be a bit isolated inside this box. It was, when you entered to that box, it was all dark. You could not hear anything from the exterior. It was truly an isolating capsule. And this is how it looked at the United Nations General Assembly in the headquarters in New York. And it was kind of mirror made. You could see the text, "This is a time machine" in the front, just to be clear. and from there, like, of course, people will enter into the time machine. And when they enter, they will find the voice greeting them and saying, well, you're in a time machine, we will go in a journey, and to do so, we first need to hear your heartbeat. And we were placing the hand of the people in this lead surface. We were taking the heartbeat, and we were amplifying the heartbeat to make the beat of a song, right? So we created this song that was made from your heartbeat, and from there we created like a whole experience that was transforming every data, every information into a new part of the song, right? So for example, we asked, did you feel safe during your childhood? And depending if you say it yes every day or never, we will use a major scale, so more cheerful, or a minor scale, more melancholic, right, to create the song. Or for example, we were asking everyone if what they wanted to be as they grew up. And for example, Obama said, I wanted to be an astronaut. And you could hear in his song 3, 2, 1, ignition, right? So we were placing these small audio tracks within the song so they could be part of. And we asked to draw something that they used to draw as kids, and they were drawing it. And with every new line, they were creating a new note into the song. And at the end, you will have like this voice saying, well, this is the song of your childhood, and you could hear it, right? And there was like this climax moment, and then it was silence. And then at that point of silence, the voice said, well, but still there are a lot of childhoods that are in silence, and it is in your hands to change that reality. And after that, a contract was printed, a contract between yourself as a child and yourself as president of whatever country, right? And we first did like this contract exhibition because we didn't want this to be a circus, to be something that they will be accountable of, and the press could take pictures of all the commitments and all the contracts, and they were publicly shown in the United Nations, and it was a public space, so of course people go there and see very intimate and daily information about all these people. And of course, it was probably one of the most surreal moments in our lives when we saw the Secretary General of the United Nations opening a time machine and saying, well, this is the future, we should change this reality of lacks of information, and people really got involved with the whole machinery. I show this picture always because this man over here that has a pixelated face, this man works for the security service of the Secretary General. He's a tough man, like you can imagine, like the kind of Matrix, Agent Smith kind of guy. And the day before the opening, he came over us and he actually asked me, well, this is not going to work, right? And I was like, yeah, this is going to work. And he was like, no. I mean, this is not going to send anyone back in time, right? And I was like, what the fuck have you seen in your life that makes you think that this is possible? And then I was scared a bit. But yeah, luckily nothing happened. No one went back in time more than conceptually. And of course, we got to meet very interesting people, but what was more interesting was to see a huge increase in the conversations of these high-level politicians on the terms of gaps of information and childhood. And this is, of course, something that is for me, it was unbelievable to think that with such an artistic and poetic and design experience, you could go towards a space of that level, right? A space where you could have like this kind of conversations. So that's a bit of the power of how like transforming time and data into other experiences can really switch the way people think. And Maria, you go ahead.
Nice picture. Sorry, nice picture, eh? Yeah. You talk a lot, Pau. So yeah, I'm gonna go briefly through the installation. It is me? No. Maybe it's through the installation that we have created especially for this festival, and I also want to thank the curators and all the PMQ and deTour team. It's been amazing to come here and also to have the possibility of again talk about time. We didn't know that we have been, it's a topic that has been haunting us in a way. And as you know, or as you could see later on, we have two different installations. The first one is called Perceptions on Time, and the second one is Memories. And the first one talks about this idea that Pau talked at the very beginning, it is that time is a really interesting topic because it's so universal. We all know what is time, but if I ask you what is time?
What is time, right?
No. It's,
I really need to think about it.
No, it's really difficult to define, and one could say that time is what the clock says, but we know that it's really much more than that, and that is because time is a really personal topic. It really depends on each one of us. So that's why we really wanted to create something where people can express themselves and we could explore together what is time through different ingredients that we always use. One of them was time. game. And as you can see here, these are some of the projects that we have done. And this is because we know that only by doing and through experience and when you interact with a piece is when you really learn about the topic and when you reflect. No? So game was one of the ingredients that we really wanted to use. So we came across with this idea, no? Why don't we break the arms of the clock and we turn the clock into a fortune wheel, something where you can play and decide. The second ingredient was the materiality. We really wanted to work with ink and paper being like craft materials, also craft materials that you use here. And by doing the research, we came across with these paper fan, folding paper fans that looking at them were like, okay, this is also a clock. So why don't we mix these two ideas, no? The fortune wheel with the fans. This is one of the first sketches that we did, mixing these two ideas, and then we said, and we want ink on top of this. So we make it a little bit more professional, and then this is the team testing everything back in Barcelona. And we came with the idea of the spray, because at the very beginning we wanted to work with ink, but the spray is also a very beautiful way to create layers of information. So your vote and my vote, we can see both because they overpass. And then the third element is the collective visualization, because we always try to learn. No? We want to learn about what we have created. These are some of the questions that you will find there over the days. We are asking things like, what does time represent for you? Work, happiness, hope. Or if the day had 24 hours, what would you do with that extra hour? Party hard? No more party hard. No more.
But tonight, yeah.
But yeah, even if we are creating an art piece, we want to create something that we can learn. So that's why we have this kind of, by the end of the day, by the end of each day, we will have a different question, we will have the answers, and by looking at the spots, we will be able to learn if people prefer one thing or the other, and also the kind of people we have here, the kind of participation. No? We were asking yesterday if time controls you or you control your time by the dots. So I would say that he was 50-50 more or less. And then there was the third layer of information, which is this machine. The sprays are moving. In the morning, they are really close to the center, and then they're moving until they arrive to the edge. So by the end of the day. So we could also learn if more people came by the morning or in the afternoon and so on. And then the second piece is called memories. And again, memories are really shaped by the time. There are things we really like to remember and things that we forget because of the time fades them away. So again, what do we do when we have a memory? We write them down, and the idea of the diary was at the very beginning. So we write them down, and it's something really personal, but with the topic also design as one, we wanted to create something that is collective. So the idea of the collective diary, where we all can say the things that we want to remember or the things that we want to forget, and we create a collective diary with these robotic arms that even if they have the technology, they also remind us the idea of the human calligraphy of the writing. Here we have some of the interaction, and what we were asking here is one simple question. If you had to decide, would you rather choose to remember something forever or to forget something forever? So the things that people wanted to remember, we were keeping them, but the things that people wanted to forget, we were kind of erasing them, making them fade away by the heat in this kind of, we call the Harry Potter moment, where the words disappear. And it's quite poetic because it really talks the same way as our minds work. Sometimes we try to forget something, but we cannot totally erase it. There is a bit of the memories that's still there, no? Like, what? More pieces of mind. Yeah. And again, we always try to learn something. So on the right of the page, we will have the database where we can learn if most of the people prefer to remember a song, to remember a crush. So what we have learned so far is that most of the people love to remember persons, people. So this is the one that is winning. By the end of the festival, we will learn all the results. And just to conclude, we've been talking about time for so long, and we have realized that by the end, time is nothing but what we made out of it, no? Like this kind of projects, this kind of festivals. And there is this quote that we really like that it says, if there is an act of love, it is to remember. And what is data if not a tool to remember and learn together? So we hope that maybe one day we will remember what we have created here together, and that will be just a success. That's all. Thank you.
Why? Oh, thank you so much, Maria, and also Pau, sharing so many previous projects and very detailed. Thank you so much. And yeah, we can take I would like to ask you something first. Go back to the beginning. So how, would you mind to tell me how was the DDS formed? Because I think that will be a very interesting story behind.
Yeah, go back in time.
back to the time.
Just using a
Take the
machine,
time.
go back to at the beginning.
Machine.
We can see that you is a big team in there, right? Some artists, some a lot of engineer or architecture or something, right? Is it the first day for the DDS is already got this kind of a scale, or is it from a small pieces to small pieces?
So actually, we didn't know that we were starting a studio when we did the first installation. The first installation was called Domestic Data Streaming. And then we said, well, if we have done this, we are the streamers, right? And we created that. But there was not an intent or an idea to make that happen. It was very organic. And how it started is we were invited to paint a graffiti in a wall. And I used to paint graffiti, and I was a bit tired of painting like letters and making the people look at it and having their approbation. So with a friend of mine, also partner of Domestic, we said, what if we create a graffiti that somehow changes depending on the people that is looking at it, right? And we said, well, what if we create an infographic that is made by the people every time that they walk through the wall? And we spent 24 hours in front of one wall in Barcelona, asking everyone that passed by how they were feeling. And there were people that were like a bit surprised, like, okay, who are you? Why are you asking this? But then when they saw the wall that we were painting with their answers, they started to, so I'm being part of this artwork. And we discovered somehow that in this collectiveness, in this space of co-creation, there was like something very powerful, right? And I remember very well the day after I went there to take some pictures, and there was a mother with 2 kids and walking to the school, and one of the kids went running to the wall and say, look, mama, this is me, pointing to one of the points. And then I saw, well, this somehow creates a mirror where people see themselves, right? So it's a different connection, right?
Yeah, I see. If we read it as it's a kind of a data visualization, but with a lot of different visitors, they group it together to do the same thing. I think this formula is quite smart, actually. For me, I just feel that it feels like we are going to the hotel to have a buffet. Something like you prepare all the material, all the food here, and then the visitor, and then the people, they will just come and grab it, but they do it in a big group together. I remember you just share one of the slides. It's quite powerful. It's for me. Only have a few words over there. If individually people do the survey or the questions and the answer, it's a kind of a self-reflect or something. But what if you guys create a kind of a space or communication area together, then dialogue will be created. I think this is more than just asking a Q&A session or something like that. Yeah, this is very,
And yes, I saw you imply quite a lot of technology inside, but not not very high-tech one, but somehow the technology can be as a media to talk to the people. So how do you incorporate with that to take a balance between the technology and also your installation and your concept?
We always said that as we use data as a tool, as a material, we use technology as another tool. But we work with people mainly, and we don't want to create something that feels far, far away. That's why in most of our installations we talk about love, we talk about time, we use this kind of materials, and if there is any kind of technology, it's in order to enhance the experience, but never is the main thing of the experience.
I think there is this concept or idea that I really like from Richard Saul Wurman, and he says that we can only understand something when it's connected to something that we already understand, right? And with technology, that applies to use technology, but that somehow people understand, right? Because otherwise, they will see it as something that is not part from them, that is not talking about them, right?
Yeah, we also always, when we doing the tour for the exhibition, no, for the festival, and then we are so happy that you guys have a very good project here, because it's a very good balance for the how to using the technology and the material, everything to represent what you're going to ask the people, and then to invite them to join the project. This is very smart and it's very cool, because if there's some high technology, right, rocket science, people totally can't understand. Then it will create a kind of a distance between the work and your concept. So, for example, for that one, we call it as a low tech because we saw everything already. But behind that, actually, there's a many high-tech thing behind. Some of the programs, how to do that thing in that precise, and then how to control and make the balance from a different time and culture. Yeah, you put all the things inside. I remember that you mentioned something, have a kind of an example. You guys don't like to put everything in a black box, and then the people, they don't know what it's doing. I think this is a very clear direction to using the technology and the tools as a communication skills to know you guys and the visitor together.
Can I say that your work is data collection in material? Can I say that?
Yeah, of course.
And what do you think the data is more important, or the telling a story is what is important? Because always you are using the work to tell a story.
Yeah, I think that's truly one of the most powerful parts of information, that there are things that cannot be explained in any other way. Like, they truly need to be explained with numbers because, for example, quantities. We live in a world that is, the problems we face are bigger and bigger, like climate change, migration, industry, the growth. All these ideas are very complex and you need numbers to understand them. But at the same time, you need to connect this very logical and quantitative and statistical mind with the story, because we humans have learned everything in our lives through stories, through narratives. So what we believe is that data needs really stories to work together, but stories also need data to understand like these huge and big concepts.
Yeah, so that's why it's not a data streamer, it's a domestic data streamer, right? Yeah. I mean, it's also got it's a kind of a balance about the data and the human. Because at the same time, we have more than nearly 20 different projects here, and then you can see different creative people. They were using the balance, and the formula is the same, but the scale is different. Some of them, for example, the Womi one, they will put all the thing at the beginning, the research part, and then they show a small part of the result. Yeah, and then but for you got a lot of experience to do that. Then you can handle something like you got some concept in your mind. For example, about the time you have a memory, and then after that, if you erase it, maybe you will got a small pieces of a concept here, small pieces of a memory here. I think this is not just a design-driven project. You also have your theory and then your angle and direction about the time. Is it normal, for example, when people talking about the data or doing some data visualization, no matter it's live or not, in a real time or not, and people will think that if got a data, then it should be related to something like science, right? It should be very rigid and then clear. And I can see that some of the question is very personal, and some of the answer is also quite dynamic. It's not a kind of okay, for example, for the age group, so be 0 to 10, 10 to 20, something like that. I can see that you change the terms. And also, when you're asking the question, for example, I think there's one day, the question is about what time means to you. It's the first question. And then when you have a second question underneath, it's when you push the button, red and yellow, right? Red or yellow, and then it's you control time, or time controlled by me. When there's an interview, right, and then the reporter will like to, would you mind to just demonstrate something? And then I can see that Maria is okay, this answer I answered a ton of times, so it should be okay to answer. But when you're facing in the second level of the question, it's quite deep actually. So is it you always put this kind of it's not a tricky thing, it's the details, the human touch in the projects?
Yeah, the thing is that any topic we are talking, even if we have the numbers and we have the data, we are talking about ourselves, we are talking about lives, we are talking, so we cannot detach the humanity from the numbers, you know? Like if we are talking about the refugee crisis, then we are talking about human beings. So when you put the number can mean, like you cannot relate to that number. So that's why we are all the time trying to bring the humanity in there and to make the mix.
Well, it's not science. And for example, the time, according to different culture, you have this project according to this in different city. And how do you see the culture affecting the results?
I think it's something we want to explore. I mean, this is the first time the pieces are here, but we would really love to bring it back to Barcelona or to any place and see the difference. No? Now that we understand that in Hong Kong you're in a rush all the time, we want to understand if we Spaniards are more lazy or, yeah, that cultural time is really related with culture. So we would love to.
I mean, for example, for Americans, the idea of time is gold, right? It's something that is time is money, right? And they have like this connection so like interconnected with the economy, right? But it's much more than money, time, right? So every culture have like a different aspect that it takes, and it kind of regurgitates inside the community.
There is one day we will ask which proverb represents you the most. So there are different proverbs, like for example, time is an inch of gold, a minute is an inch of gold, and there is another one that says, truth is the daughter of time. So it's going to be also a nice question to ask the people.
Yeah. Even the things look very simple and very direct, right? Simple question, simple answer, just simple interaction. But behind that, there's a lot of theory or something like that. And also, you mentioned about maybe the culture different. Yeah, as you say in Hong Kong, right? Maybe someone will think that 1 hour you can read it as 10 hours. So I think same as our dialogue here. Yeah, the time files is nearly done. So we only got 10 minutes left. So any questions from the stage? Yeah, just feel free to ask them. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Wait. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, thanks. It's not really like a question, but like an appreciation of the medium you use, because the notion of remembering, especially in the age of like a lot of technologies, we have smartphones, we kind of outsource our brain to the machine. But then the action of remembering is actually very refreshing. And I also think that, because you talked about data as in a collective, and I totally agree, but it seems that because when we input data, it kind of gives you an abstract position to look at yourself. So it's kind of creating a safe space because you know it's represented abstractly somehow. no matter in numbers or in shapes or in colors. And I think it kind of have a therapeutic effect in it. When you look at it, okay, I kind of look at myself from a distance and I input myself, and it kind of melts into the collective. And that really gives a very poetic notion to it. So thank you for bringing the work to Hong Kong. And perhaps it's, okay, I do have a question. So can you share a work or a project that is particularly meaningful, like personally to you? Why would you start to do the project? Like, which one is more personal to you? Could you share with us?
You mean from the projects we have done before in the past? I mean, like, probably the ones that we showed were meaningful, but still today, we are on a process of exploration. Like, we use the medium, the discipline, to make questions. So for us, every project we do, it's a question that we try to solve, right? And every project starts with this big one question. And first we have to identify which question do we want to ask. And then, so that's the way we like kind of understand our work, as a constant kind of question and answer. Yeah, so I don't know how to answer with one specific project.
I have one. I can answer. No, I was thinking that there was a really powerful moment when we were working for an exhibition back in Barcelona a couple of years ago. We were doing an exhibition about feminism. And while we were doing that, we had a lot of discussions inside the team. We are a team about 25 people, really mixed team. And there were a lot of discussions. So one day we decided, okay, one of the girls in the team said, okay, we need the guys from our team to understand the situations we have gone through in our lives, because I think that they don't know. So why don't we, so we write down all our stories anonymously in the same doc. And one day, this was during the pandemic, so we were all locked down in our houses, but we went to the Zoom call, we closed the video cameras, and one of the girls read all the stories from all the sexist things that happened to many of the women on the team, and that was so powerful, so sad, but at the same time, so beautiful to share, mainly for the guys that they didn't know that this situation happened from every day. And then from that experience that we had in the team, then we created a piece for the installation. So the last room of the exhibition was a collective piece where every woman could scan a code and write in a similar way like the printers, anonymously, their stories. It was the same experience that we did inside our team. We created an installation for that. And it was so beautiful. We had so many answers, and many people came today and they say, you are the guys from that. That moment was, because it was not only about I have a moment to say my word, but also I have a moment to read, like women from any age writing down many different stories, and you can spend there 1 hour reading a small text from an old lady in their 80s that happened something to her when she was 10. So that was a really nice moment. You can check it online.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the questions. At the same time, we'd like to, the question is very good, right? And then also because she's not the fake audience to ask the question, but she's the one of the co-creator in the building. She also using, because I think you maybe have some questions or something you already got experience about how to balance the story and the data. Yeah, her project is very cool. Actually, it's talking about the story behind the people moving their home, and also related to have you got your ideal living environment already? So maybe
we saw
we
it.
love
it's
it.
Amazing.
Hey, any other questions from the? Any other questions? 大家都比較怕醜啲係嘛 ？Any other questions?
Yes, here, because I'm waiting for my part to ask questions, but no time for me. Okay. I really like, she also mentioned that she really liked your material you choose, me too, because you pick sand at the beginning, and also the truck, and also the wood, and this time you pick paper. I really liked the material that you particularly use for the installation to create interaction with the people. I would love to know how you select the material for particular that project. Oh, I'm using paper this time, and then I'm using sand.
I can talk a bit how we approach to materials, but maybe Maria, you can go specifically from this one. So we always try to use something that is connected to the mental unit, to the mindset or the mental knowledge about certain specific topics. In this case, it was a bit different because we had like some constraints also, but really like the limitations that we have with every project kind of guides us to take a materiality that feels really close to people in terms of not something that is fancy or that is something that you cannot find even in their homes, but something that everyone have at their home, right?
Yeah, I think for this project, there was, since we were working for a festival and we could do whatever we want, we were not working for, didn't have like many constraints. We always have ideas that are there waiting for the moment to arrive. So for so long we were thinking about the idea of an ink dropper and the art piece you can create with the boats and the ink, and we had a lot of references thinking, we need a moment, we need the project perfect for using the ink and so on, and then you can buy. And then we think, wow, this is perfect because paper is in your culture, also ink, so this is perfect. We have no idea how to work with paper. We have a STICKYLINE here that could help, and it was such a pleasure because we have learned a lot, and I think it's been so magical. All the team that, imagine the first day, we didn't know even how to create the fan. So we were folding, and he was, no, this is not the way. Then we said, no, we need to talk with you, and then you will help us.
Yeah, I know that the time is we only got 1 more minute. Maybe we should do the Wawa, but I also have a questions, right? Yeah, from a data point of view, right? You can ask the different question, maybe by the different projects. But back to yourself. Are there any special issue or things you would like to ask in the next project? Just some question down to your side too. Or something you really want to know.
Well, for the next project we're working on, we have like this question that is, what is normal? The concept of normality. Right, that it comes from, normal comes from the word norm, from the term norm, so it's like the rule. And we want to actually explore this idea of what it means to be normal. We all feel a bit odd inside, right, a bit weird in some things, but we try to be normal, right, to fit into the society. So that's one of the big questions that we want to go through, as it's something that is very personal. Everyone wants to feel normal, but sometimes you don't. So.
And I just wanted to add that when we were visiting all the artworks that you have here, we have found like many interesting questions. Like, for example, the one from our neighbors here, like, is there anything that you haven't told to your parents? It is really powerful. Also on the big blinds, we have many interesting questions. Like we were so inspired also, but we will not use them in our projects. But yeah. Thank you also for bringing all these people together.
I think time is up. So thank you so much again, Pau and Maria, and thank you everyone to join the sharing and asking very good questions as well. Yeah, thank you for your time to join deTour, and then please like, share, and subscribe to deTour, and tell your friends that Didi is here and then visit the exhibition tomorrow or within the exhibition period. OK，
我用廣東話講少少啦。除咗喺即係今日多謝大家嚟參與今次呢個對談之外啦，其實咧你睇到上邊咧陸陸續續都有好多場好好嘅對話啦。咁我知道大會咧係會將呢啲 dialog 啦同埋一啲嘅嘢咧會剪輯，跟住就會係再播翻出嚟，大家可以睇得翻嘅。嚟到嘅座位有限，期望可能將今次deTour嘅一啲嘅 project 啦或者 dialog 咧，可以即係再發開去，等大家一齊可以參與啲咁高質素嘅一個對談啦。好多謝大家，多謝大家。